space. Well, not really. Take two. Here, in the Mitten State. Welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone. With your co-captains, Charlie Carden and Alex Terry.
And we are back again. Welcome, ladies, germs, androids, Andorians, asexual beings of all kind, to the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite Network. I am your humble servant, the Trek Lord of West Michigan, Captain Charlie Carden, USS Grand Petoskey, joined as always by my Wookiee co-pilot. See, I crossed over a little bit there. The Jedi Captain of Northern Michigan, Trek Lord of the North, Mr. Alex Terry, acting captain. Alex, how are you today?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. It's this is dropping to you on St. Valentine's Day. Well, that's when we're recording. It'll be dropping later this week, but just after we record this, I'm gonna eat like 3 boxes of heart-shaped chocolates and go into a sugar coma.
Well, there you go. That's called self-care and loving yourself, or it's called self-abuse and hating yourself, depending on which spectrum. There was an old a stand-up routine, I think, by Louis C.K., the disgraced comedian, who said, "The meal is not over when I'm full. The meal is over when I hate myself." Oh, and of course, we're in the doldrums of winter. I am going to dedicate my afternoon to shoveling, which sounds great. That is going to be today's workout instead of leg day, which I'm skipping on my regular workout. But yeah, we're back. We've kind of realigned our chakras here so that we're moving forward and doing the first half of a season instead of the back half of the season and then the first half of the season. So quality control has ruled. So that brings us around to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which bowed in the first week of January in 1993. Now, last time I was talking about the first half, we were talking about the first half of Star Trek The Next Generation, and I talked about, well, when that came out, it was mere weeks after I had started middle school. Well, this came out halfway through my junior year in high school, so I'm about to turn 17. You know, I love Star Trek and comics. Girls won't touch me with the 10-foot pole because it would be another 25 years before that kind of thing actually turned ladies on. And so I was chick repellent, essentially, even though I was clearly tall and handsome. Maybe not that last part. Maybe not the handsome part. The tall, I had my growth spurt by then, so I was about this height. But yeah. But at any rate, we got the first spin-off of Star Trek that was not created by Gene Roddenberry. Because spinoff number 1 was Star Trek the Animated Series, really, if you look at it that way, in 1973, which was not great. And then the first live-action spinoff was Star Trek The Next Generation, which obviously we had been talking about. So this was conceived and created by Rick Berman, who is really quite reviled in a lot of Trek circles as the guy who really drove the franchise into the ground with Enterprise, and of course the final FU that was the series finale of that show, which we will not talk about right now.
Mortifying.
That episode was really kind of encapsulated everything that had gone wrong with the franchise by that time. But I digress. So it was Rick Berman and the late Michael Piller. Who I believe died of cancer in 1996. But yeah, he was, instrumental in those, formative years of Star Trek The Next Generation, in the production and in the writing. And so, yeah, the two of these guys got together, I believe, in mid, kind of 1992 and started brainstorming up a different kind of Star Trek. Star Trek, through essentially 3 series, 2 of which having the same crew, has always been about a group of Starfleet officers on a ship, going around doing stuff. Well, going back to that exact same in the exact same fashion, having 2 shows on the air that are doing the same thing, where's the excitement? Where's the discovery, for lack of a better term? So there, and again, I'm spitballing all this off the top of my head. I don't have this written down anywhere. This is just stuff I've read over the years. But they really, I think, set forth to create something unique. And so, the first season of this show, because it started in January and your typical season back in those days was 26 episodes, and you've really cut that down by several weeks. This season only had 20, so we're going to be talking about 10 episodes today. But it really gave us something that, again, much like with Star Trek The Next Generation, it kind of, and I know Alex, you and I kind of differ on this, it kind of hobbled through that first season. I don't know that we got a lot of really standout episodes until I think we got to the very end, which we'll talk about in our next episode.
Season 5.
Season 5.
That's where it started getting gritty, and it was the Cardassian Wars. But we'll get into that later.
Right. Exactly correct. Yeah.
Before we start, I just want, in the spirit of Deep Space Nine, I just want to wish a very happy birthday, not that he'll ever hear this, to the Mr. Andrew Robinson, who was born in 1942, February 14th, and portrays Garak on Deep Space Nine.
I was not aware of that timely birthday. But yeah, so I think I've absolutely lost my train of thought. We ended up with the show that, much like the first season of Star Trek: Next Generation, much like the first season of Voyager that we'll talk about a little further on down the road, really struggled to find a coherent voice. They had to kind of flounder around. But that being said, I think we were right out the gate with Emissary, which was episodes essentially 1 and 2, because it was a feature-length production. A new joint Federation Bajoran crew is assigned to the former Cardassian space station Terok Nor, which is redubbed Deep Space Nine. Benjamin Sisko, as a new station commander, is declared emissary of the prophets by a Bajoran priest, and promptly discovers a stable wormhole connecting Bajor to the Gamma Quadrant on the other side of the galaxy. And as I mentioned, shown as a 2-hour movie, but later split into syndication. But boy, I got to tell you, the thrill of watching this for the first time was great, and it was very referential. We had Patrick Stewart as Captain Picard as a guest star, because one of the ongoing cast members is Chief Miles O'Brien, who leaves the Enterprise after having been on all 6 seasons of that show to date when this was coming on, to become Chief of Operations aboard the station. So there's a cameo where you see he and Picard having a moment that's not a moment. It's just a transport room, sir. It's like, you know what? Don't make this weird. Knock it off. But the real moment was the fact that Benjamin Sisko was the first officer of USS Saratoga during the Battle of Wolf 359 3 years before this. And lost at the hands of that Borg attack, which, of course, Jean-Luc Picard, having been assimilated by the Borg as Locutus, was leading that battle. A single Borg cube decimated 39 Starfleet vessels in a huff. Now, that episode made you think there were no survivors. Clearly, what you see here is that Sisko aboard the Saratoga led a group of survivors into an escape pod, but it did not included his young son, but not his wife, who died in the battle. And they were both and she was a civilian. So obviously Sisko has kind of dragged his life through the last few years, but comes face to face with the man he feels to be responsible for the death of his wife. And so that's very difficult for him. So he gets here, he's not really feeling it. He's like, here's Picard. He reminds me of everything I hate about Starfleet. Screw all this. I'm about done. When he has this, sudden encounter with Kaiopaka, who is the top Bajoran, and of course the Bajorans introduced in the season 5 TNG episode about a year before this. Ensign Ro, with Michelle Laren as Ensign Ro, Michelle Forbes as Ensign Ro Laren, introduces the species, kind of teases them a little bit. Then you start to see them fleshed out here. A pretty well-known fact is that Michelle Forbes was offered the role of Bajoran first officer on this series and turned it down.
Thank God.
To go into a career in movies. Yes, exactly, because then the role of Kira Nerys, Nana Visitor, was created. Amazing character. Arguably, I would say, extremely well fleshed out during the 7 seasons of this episode.
Totally. Yeah. Nana Visitor brought so much beauty and brought in, she was so integral in actually fleshing out not just her character, but the whole Bajoran.
Right. Yeah, she was the key to the entirety of the culture, I think, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, she brought so much to the show, and she is one of my favorite Trek actresses. Always will be.
Totally agree. That's somebody that, and she's very heavy on the con circuit. I would certainly love to, when the world opens up, one of our goals is to go into cosplay at Star Trek Las Vegas. But again, somewhere down the road. But if we can coordinate some of us here locally at Starfleet International, I know one of my officers, Madison. Am I gonna draw a blank on her name? She's my one senior staffer. It is Madison, who lives out of state. Is a former Hollywood costumer. She lives in Kansas, and she's been several times. So I'm gonna kind of take her lead. Would love to assemble some of our crew at Star Trek Las Vegas sometime. But anyway, I digress. Obviously, the show introduces the rest of the characters in the series. Odo, the security chief. He's a mysterious shape-shifting alien. You get Dr. Bashir, who is the young pain-in-the-ass Starfleet physician. You have Jadzia Dax, who is a Trill, again, another mysterious species introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation in season 4. And her portrayal of it produces some inconsistencies and so on and so forth, but you kind of throw all that out the window. Quark is a Ferengi, or a Ferengi non-military, so just a civilian, regular Ferengi guy who's running a business. So he's as shady as fuck. I mean, couldn't be any. Always trying. So he and Odo are locked in perpetual combat of kind of getting the next big thing over. So, and this really sets all the pieces in motion of the fact that this show is. Some people would describe the characters and the cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation as being very homogenous, very bland. Everybody's buddies. Everybody hangs out. Blah blah blah. These people, some of them would just as soon kill another one because they're all such bad people. You know what I mean? So that's what really, I think, sets the pace. And that continues to move things forward on into episode 3, past prologue. What's nice about these is because it was just the 20 episodes, they just aired straight. So it was, if I remember correctly, there were no gaps. And again, it was in syndication. So it aired on your local station. In this case, it was Fox 17 here in Michigan, because that was the station my mom worked at. So I got a couple of pieces of Star Trek swag in my time because my mom's station carried the show. So I was pretty happy about that.
So jealous. But wasn't it? I believe it was on Sunday nights.
Oh, God, boy, you're dipping back. Now, do you guys don't get Fox 17 all the way up there? Do you get, what's the Fox station up there? Is it 9 and 10? I know that's a big station up there.
We had 9 and 10, and I think it was on CBS.
Okay, it was on the CBS affiliate? Okay.
Because my parents were cheap and we didn't have cable. So we had like 4 stations. And on a good day, if you stood on your head and we had one of those little roto antennas that you could like crank it and it would go do-do, 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 and it would move your aerial on the house.
Right,
we could get a fuzzy Fox 33.
Oh my!
But I think it was on CBS on Sunday nights for me.
Where the hell is Fox 33? Is that in Wisconsin? Is that like Green Bay?
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
I don't know why that I remember this. See, I interned at Fox 47 in Lansing when I was a college kid. So I had kind of set myself up to follow my mom's footsteps. She was an advertising a local rep at Fox 17, and never really panned out for me that way. But I got to know a lot about TV that way and affiliates and things like that. So you remember stuff like that. And it's funny because anytime I would ever go anywhere to travel for work, I would always watch the local news on the hotel and the TV because it's just so ingrained to me. So I find local TV stations fascinating. But anyway, moving on. Past prologue, episode 3, Bajoran terrorist with ties to Kira arrives on the station, pursued by the Cardassians. Forgot to mention that the Cardassians are clearly the big villain of this series. We're also introduced, obviously in the first episode, to Marc Alaimo as Gul Dukat, who will become a very pivotal villain throughout the series. But not to spoil. Oh my God! This episode gives us Garrick for the first time, a mysterious Cardassian tailor who lives on the station and assists in uncovering what he is up to. Also gives us our first villain cameo from Star Trek: Next Generation. We get the Klingon sisters, the Duras sisters, as scammers working with this nasty Bajoran uber terrorist who, again, he tries to hornswoggle Kira. Kira's loyalties are tested. So it's a nice early character study for Kira. And you know, I enjoyed it very much. And again, it's great to watch these, but it's also really tough to watch these because, again, they stream on Netflix, and of course I own the discs. I have the discs of everything because I'm a completist. But you know, the tragedy of both DS9 and Voyager is that they are seemingly permanently residing to be in standard definition. The funds and the interest simply is not there to upconvert the series into the high definition that we enjoy for the original series and Enterprise, because it was really made at that time, and Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it's a crappy watch. It just looks so fuzzy.
And you and I have talked about this like off air. Like Charlie and I talk like every 10 minutes. We're either texting each other or Facebook messaging one another, and we've talked about this. So to me, Deep Space Nine is one of my favorite. It's almost like the DC version of Trek. It's got more grit to it than we're accustomed to. Mm-hmm, so that one always played to me, you know. But as I'm rewatching this, like I'm currently, I think I have 3 episodes left in season 7, which is the end of the show. Well, I noticed, I know it's just getting really good, but I noticed that in mid-season 6, it actually clears up a little bit. Like the filming and stuff. Like it's not it's not like high def like we're accustomed to these days, but it's not original. It was the first couple seasons.
Right, and that probably has as much to do with the fact that, you know, if you watch like Next Generation, for example, start at the beginning of season 5, and it's weird because there's a cliffhanger between 4 and 5. It's a Klingon Civil War back in TNG. You'll notice that the film stock changes between 4 and 5 to a much kind of a softer focus. The colors are they aren't quite as vibrant. And it's funny because I really noticed that in SD, but in HD it really stands out. And so it could simply have been a change like that, like a change from one season to the next that, hey, we're changing this thing and that's why it looks different. Or simply that filming technology improved and it just didn't look quite as hacky slacky. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's definitely possible.
Totally.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on, episode 4, not super notable. A Man Alone. Odo is a really great description. It sounds like even whoever wrote this was bored. Odo is accused of the murder of a Bajoran murderer. Could you put some more murder in there? Murder. Weird episode. Odo is accused of murdering a guy who turns out the guy cloned himself so he could murder the clone to frame Odo. And there you see your first real racism against Odo's shapeshifter species, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Didn't really do it for me.
That one is a passable one. I mean, to me, I will watch all episodes of DS9's on, and I walk in the room, I'm sitting down and watching it. But this one kind of like you were insinuating, it was kind of lacking in some, but it was a good start flesh out for Renee's character of Odo.
Right, exactly, and every character really needs that shot in the arm. The next episode was actually kind of highlighted Chief O'Brien, at least in the beginning, and just kind of how crappy his job is, you know, working on DS9, and the fact that everybody takes for granted. Babel is episode 5. A mysterious virus plagues the station, causing first aphasia and eventually death by anybody who gets affected. Turns out it was, you know, a virus constructed to kill Cardassians that had been sitting dormant for 20 years, and O'Brien activates it by trying to patch together the station. So it's okay. You know, it's kind of a race against time kind of deal. Whatever. Again, not super notable. Didn't do anything really, you know, kind of sexy or different. But again, we're kind of plotzing our way through until we get to really some better episodes in the season, which I think that a few of these before we get to the end here are not too shabby. Captive Pursuit is the next episode. I'm sorry, unless you had any other thoughts about number 5. I blow right through it.
You kind of made me chuckle when you said that O'Brien kind of had a thankless job, a sucky job, and I just sit there and I identify with O'Brien. You know, you and I are both of Celtic descent,
Mm-hmm.
And O'Brien's just like the heart of Irishman right there, And yeah, he plugs along, and I've always loved O'Brien. He is amazing. He's an amazing character. He didn't have a first name to season 2 of TNG?
Yeah.
But,
no, he didn't get a first name, and he got a name in season 2 of TNG. He got a first name in season 4.
That's what it was.
I think, yeah.
But I just kind of chuckled because it's not, his job kind of sucked and he got a lot of shit dropped in his plate. But oh my God, did his life go to shit when Keiko came on board? Like, I'm going to say this right now. If there is one character in the entire, and you just heard me call the cotton asshole, if there is one character that I just did not like in any series of Trek, it's Keiko O'Brien, because she treated her husband like shit.
She really wasn't. I wouldn't say she was much of a charitable soul, no. Especially in that later episode where she gets possessed by the Pa Wraith. You don't really notice that much of a change in her personality. She's still a see you next Tuesday. She's just still not a very nice lady. But yeah, exactly. But anyway, episode 6, Captive Pursuit, kind of a fun episode. Again, an O'Brien episode. It's kind of a twofer. O'Brien befriends an alien from the Gamma Quadrant who is being hunted. So this is our first alien race from the Gamma Quadrant crossing over. And again, in a lot of ways, this really exemplifies what Trek does best. It exposes us to different cultures that have different values. In this case, there's a sentient race called Tosk, which they are bred in captivity and produced solely to be the prey of this, I believe, unnamed alien race. I don't know that they ever ended up getting a name. But yeah, that's the pinnacle of their society. They're honored for their role in the hunt, but the true dishonor is for them to be captured. So this Tosk ends up being captured. O'Brien facilitates getting him let go because they'd become friends, and I kind of dig that. But again, this was a one and done race that, they never turned up again. For all we know, they turned around and got conquered by the Dominion, and that's why you never hear from them again. Because we still don't get the Dominion until the end of season 2, or about midway through the season 2. So, I mean, what did you think? What did you think about this episode?
This one was, again, it was another one for Colin Meaney to kind of flesh out O'Brien. Like we had seen him in TNG for seasons, and like, we had just touched on, he got a name in season 2, got a first name in season 4. This is really, these last 2 episodes are really a good chance for us to get to know O'Brien on a more intimate level and to build that character that comes forth and spans the series. Like, even in Lower Decks, they have that the hardest working person in Starfleet, and it's the statue of O'Brien at the console.
Yeah, exactly correct. He did. He did a lot of standing.
Oh yeah, he did. I hope they gave him like really nice insoles for his Starfleet issued boots. But
what's funny is, speaking of standing, like, how Worf always stood at the horseshoe on the bridge in TNG. Yeah. Eventually, when they did a new bridge for Star Trek Generations, he got a little stool to sit on. Now, they couldn't have done that. They couldn't have done that for O'Brien. That sucks. That sucked. I don't really care for that. But at any rate, we get our first big not only recurring character from TNG crossover, but actually the continuation of a TNG storyline in Q Less. See episode 7, Q and Vash. Last scene in the Cupid episode in season 4 in TNG, where they did the Robin Hood thing. Arrive on Deep Space Nine. Vash has grown annoyed by Q's attention and wants her to leave him alone. She had been discovered in the Gamma Quadrant where she and Q parted company, and so she gets brought back to the station. Q follows her, and it's a pretty Star Trek-y kind of plot from there. It's another one of these, well, something's going wacky on the station, we gotta figure it out, but we got the scrappy equipment and blah blah blah. That seemed to be a real through line in season 1, but this does give us probably one of the best Q moments of all of Q moments, which is him. Yeah, he's harassing Cisco, and Cisco just fucking socks him in the nose. and then Q says, "You hit me. Picard never hit me." And Cisco says, "I'm not Picard." And Q says, "I know, you're much easier to provoke." Ooh. That being said, that all is a red herring because Q never appears on Deep Space Nine again. They go in a different direction. So this was fun for those moments. I thought, I enjoyed that. It was, a lot of the episode was played for laughs, but there's very few laughs played in episode 8. And this is our first real fleshing out of not only Jadzia Dax, who was a much more serene and serious character early in the series, probably owing to the fact that she was new at being a Trill and probably still adjusting and maybe not so comfortable in her own skin. But I found this episode to be really excellent. So Jadzia Dax is arrested for murder allegedly committed by Curzon Dax, the previous host of the Symbiote and Ben Sisko's mentor. An extradition hearing is held to determine whether Jadzia can be held liable for Curzon's actions. Now, a lot of great guest stars in this episode.
Yes.
Finola Flanagan plays the wife of the murdered General Tondro from this planet. You got Greg Eitzen, who is a great actor who's been in everything, including other Star Treks. Anne Hanley is the older the arbitrator, she also appeared in an episode of TNG and just going way back. So this is where what I always loved about Star Trek, bringing in that great stable of recurring actors, and they were recurring actors because they were just so good at what they did. I love seeing those kind of faces. So yeah, I thought this was great, and Dax was willing to die to protect the secret at the end of the day that while she was not guilty of the murder of this General Tondro who was selling his people out and then he got caught and got murdered, but as Curzon Dax, he was banging the general's wife. So whoops. Didn't really. And of course, the guy who was trying to prosecute Jadzia was the son of the deceased general who had no idea. Quite a turnabout, and like I said, a nice early fleshing out of Jadzia Dax's character, I thought.
It really was, and unfortunately, Jadzia's doesn't. I don't know. I think it's like season 4 or 5 that we find out she's like 300 years old, and she's had 8 different incarnations with this you know what I'm talking about. The symbiote and everything. But it is a really great fleshing out. We really get to see Terry Farrell step up to the plate in this one, and like it is with every first season of a new Trek, there's going to be hit or miss, and but this one I really like it because you kind of get into that backstory.
Right. Totally. No, I totally dug on it. Now, we kind of segue into a real miss in episode 9. The Passenger. A sinister criminal cheats death to hide his consciousness in the mind of someone on Deep Space Nine. I guess you're trying to get, who is it? Who's doing these things? Because, it's like he dies, he passes his consciousness on, can't really figure out who it is or why or this and that. And at the end of it, it kind of means nothing. So it was kind of a do nothing kind of episode. It was also revealed. Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was going to say, and like you're saying on this one, it did nothing, and it's one of those that we dub a filler episode. Are they trying to make there's 20 episodes to this first season, and some of them were kind of like that. Fortunately for DS9, later in the seasons, the filler episodes are my favorite.
Right, you're right, because they even still managed to stay, they still managed to stay pretty tight, exactly. It was revealed, by the way, the big mystery was really spoiled in the middle of this because it was Dr. Bashir who's the possessed, but he's in the shadows and he has Quark like in a headlock, and then he goes to toss him loose and the camera catches Sid's face, so you see that it's Bashir. So that was kind of annoying. That was just bad editing in my regard. So yeah, but again, floundering their way through. Speaking of floundering their way through, the last episode we have to talk about, episode 10, is Move Along Home. Now, this is our second race from the Gamma Quadrant. Second race worse than the first. This was a race called the Wadi. So Quark plays a board game with the Wadi, newly encountered species from the Gamma Quadrant, and the lives of the crew seemingly depend on the outcome. So yeah, the crew ends up wrapped up. This is a species that all they care about is gaming. So they're basically neckbeard video gamers. So they're just not in their mom's basement. So they're playing. They're in Quarks. They're enjoying playing Dabo and whatever. But then they conscript four of our crew. I think it's Sisko, Bashir, Kira, and Dax into this game where it seems like their lives are in peril and they got to do this thing and do that thing. And at the end of it, it was all a mulligan. It's just dumb, filler. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, it is what it is. The first season, and this we just fleshed out the first half. The first season, there's a lot to put together. And I'm kind of thinking we're on the same mind track on this one. Those episodes we kind of dubbed the filler episodes could have filled out a lot more background instead of filling out just like filler, just like, here's 46 minutes of footage. Watch it, Trekkies.
Yeah. Take it. You like it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's stuff going on in the first season that is amazing. And there's stuff going on in the first season that's not so amazing. But one thing that kind of, and I didn't catch this till I'm rewatching again as an adult, that first episode, first off, as a child, seeing Picard, I mean, you see Picard and you're like, oh, that's Jean-Luc, all right. And then you kind of see someone that thinks Jean-Luc's a prick and hates him. And
Exactly.
you see the annoyance of Sir Patrick Stewart portraying Jean-Luc, the annoyance, and just like, wow, this is the first time I've never seen anyone just fawn over Jean-Luc. What is this?
Yeah. What's up your ass? Exactly. So yeah, you're right. It does really, in a lot of ways, set the tone that it's another Star Trek show. It's more of the same. No, you get a character in there who looks at Jean-Luc Picard, the embodiment of TNG, and says, man, fuck you. I don't have anything. I hate you so bad. I want to quit Starfleet. That's how much I think you suck. Yeah.
And then the actual watching that first episode, or the first two episodes, Emissary, when he is talking with the prophets, which at that point they were kind of assuming we're an alien race, what have you. I think even Dax at one point later in the series prays to the prophets and says, I don't do this all the time. To me, you're just an alien on the other side of the wormhole, but Kira says this works, so I'm going to give it a shot. But anyways, that first episode, and it really kind of fleshes out Benjamin Sisko, and I think, like you said, it was the first series not done by Roddenberry, but they were trying to pull a Roddenberry, because Roddenberry always pulled the active stuff that's going on in our world and portray that on screen and how we can work together and correct it. Well, this one, when this is going on, PTSD was just becoming a mainstream diagnosis. We knew our soldiers that bravely go and fight and everything come back, and some of them just weren't the same because of the stuff they experienced, the stuff they saw. And they were fleshing out PTSD in this episode, and the thing that caught me is they kept taking Sisko back to the Saratoga during the Battle of Wolf 359, and you see Jennifer, his wife, pinned under this thing, and there's flames and alarms going on, and they're pulling Sisko away from her. She's dead. We got to get out of here. And he's like, you keep bringing me back here. And the prophets say, because this is where you live.
Right. You bring us here. Exactly.
And that, as an adult, It hit hard for me because, I had some stuff go on and I have been diagnosed. I'm not ashamed to say I have been diagnosed with PTSD. And just having the proper name of the beastie has given me the tools to heal myself and take myself to a better place.
Awesome.
And so as an adult rewatching this, and I didn't get this as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, and it just hits you in the heartstrings. And you see him make that realization, and he takes it from there. So I guess the first 2 episodes of DS9 will be why DS9 is always going to be one of my favorite Treks. And because it for the first time, watching all the other Treks, you can put together the stuff going on in the real world that they're portraying on the screen. But this is the first time an episode actually hit me in the heart as an adult. And I'm like, Oh my God, this is so, in a way, it helped me heal myself.
That's awesome. Well, I had no idea, man. It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Seriously.
Oh, no problem.
It makes a difference. Well, that is the wrap on the first 10 episodes of DS9. We got a news story and a swag story to talk about, and then we're going to boogie on out of here. Now, I had some different options for our news story, but just this morning, I entitled this news story "Stop Playing with Charlie's Emotions," because we have one article making some hints, and then another article backing up some of those hints, and they're both on sites that I, as a lifelong journalist and believer in credible sources, not in clickbait. Alex and I, we joke about this quite frequently. Clickbait is my goddamn kryptonite. If I see a clickbait article being purported on social media by anyone, I will pop a hole in that shit. I do not give. It's a hashtag sorry not sorry kind of scenario. I don't give a fuck. I will do it. But at any rate, I've seen 2 sources on this, so I tend to believe that this might have some legs. Production on Star Trek's Strange New Worlds appears to be imminent. Now, this article that I'm referring comes from TrekMovie.com, a site that I use frequently. It's
a referable site. I mean, it's got.
So. I think so. It's referring to a tweet by Ethan Peck, who is Lieutenant Spock, who lives in California, but this is tagged in Toronto, where the show is going to film. As he shows a shopping cart covered in snow, which is no strange image to anyone here in Michigan. As the fact that he is in Toronto. Why the hell else would he be in Toronto, particularly when international travel is so difficult these days? Anyone leaving the U.S. For Canada or vice versa has to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So people are not just coming and going. He didn't just pop in for a meeting and then he's going to pop back to California. The timing for Peck to be in Toronto for rehearsals would make a lot of sense, because there's talk of the show rolling cameras as early as a week and a half from now, or a week from now. So it does mention of a day of Feb 22, which my birthday is Feb 23. I would love to see a tweet or some other kind of announcement on my birthday, the day before my birthday, saying the cameras are rolling on this show. And if you're not familiar, because I probably should have started by saying this, Strange New Worlds, which was announced last year, is set to portray the Constitution class USS Enterprise under Captain Pike, about 10 years before the beginning of the original series. So Captain Pike, who was portrayed by Anson Mount in season 2 of Discovery, along with his first officer, number 1, Rebecca Romaine, and Lieutenant Spock, obviously the classic Spock character, now portrayed by Ethan Peck, kind of as a trio that would be the center of the series. So I think this is amazing. 10-episode season to kick it off, which, again, we talk about this a lot on FSU, Todd and I do, but I love 10-episode seasons. You know what I mean? Because
totally.
just like we were talking about in the 20-episode first seasons of DS9, how many of those episodes, even in the first 10, did we describe as filler? Like half of them, maybe more? That, maybe you and I picked out 3 or 4 that we thought were good, but when you have, sure, you may get 1 of 10 that's a filler, but the rest of it tends to really pursue a focused story or a focused kind of, at least focused kind of storytelling. And so, but that's modern television. That's really a huge difference. It's not even really to knock on necessarily what TV was like back in the 90s. But, Alex, as you and I were talking, we were planning to take our show bi-weekly to do this, but then we found that we just love recording so much that we still wanted to go every week. But we're going to continue to do recaps like this, a half season at a time until we get a new program. And there's talk that there's going to be four different Star Trek series in production in 2021, which has never been done before. So Lower Decks,
that's going to blow my mind.
Yeah, Lower Decks plus this show, Star Trek Prodigy, which is a animated program on the Nickelodeon platform, which should be arriving this year. And then, of course, Star Trek Discovery began production late last year, before the show even even debuted. So, hashtag Star Trek Universe, that's really the beauty of what we are entering. So, yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Here's one that I was wondering, because you and I had theorized, we think we're going to get Lower Decks before we get any other series because, it's animated. They can do the voice work remotely. But here's one that I was just thinking about the other day when I was working. We've got Disco is filmed in Toronto, right?
Correct, yeah.
So we currently, you and I know, because we're here in the States, what the current stipulations are for things like this. Like, the 6 foot, you're staying away, you're self-isolating, you're 6 foot away, you're doing all these things. But I started thinking about it and I'm like, they're filming a lot of these in Canada. I wonder what Canada's stance on this is, and if it's going to be a little looser to where they can actually move forward with some production in Canada compared to if they were filming in Hollywood.
Which is what they're doing with Picard,
Exactly.
So, you had mentioned, obviously, Lower Decks as being something we could see soon. I get the feeling that Prodigy might be first, simply because I think it's been in production longer. But again, what I'm hoping, and again, Star Trek is my unconditional love, so I tend to get all in with whatever they produce. But I just remember that, like with Star Wars, they produced that Resistance cartoon that was it was a little too kid focused, that it was fantastically boring. So I'm really hoping that's not going to be the case. And that had, I think, Poe Dameron from the sequel trilogy as one of the recurring characters. This has Catherine Janeway, who is a major character, the lead character of an entire series, as one of the regular characters. So I'm hoping that's going to spare us from that. But again, I'm assuming, and I guess it's not necessarily verified, that Star Trek Prodigy, because it is a Nickelodeon property, and that's Viacom, will simply be able to stream it on Paramount Plus, which that name change happens really here only in a few weeks. It's the 14th today. That happens on the 4th. So that's 20 days from now. It'll be Paramount Plus. So I'm very fired up about this. I think Paramount Plus is going to be great. It's going to be more content. They're looking to go, nose to nose with Netflix and by offering great stuff. So we shall see what happens. But secondly, and finally, in production news, or in product news, I should say, new book was announced last week, a Star Trek Discovery book telling the story of Michael Burnham's season 3 gap year. Everybody gets a gap year. That's something that kids go, I'm taking a gap year before I go to college. Whatever. I just went to college. Work too. Shit. But yeah, you'll remember that at the beginning of this current season, when Discovery is the ship, and then Burnham is the individual wearing the Red Angel suit, enter the anomaly. They got split in different directions and really into different times. Burnham landed a full year before Discovery did, which gave her the opportunity to track them down and rescue them in the final analysis. So in that first episode, she meets Book, and they become associates, so not lovers at that time. But they spend a year trying to track down where the hell Discovery is and going through adventures at that time. So official synopsis says that in a desperate attempt to prevent the knowledge of control, this Burnham and Discovery went into the future separately. So she ended up there a year before. What did she do in that time? She hadn't even discovered the Federation in that time. So what did she do in that time? So that's their question. My question is, and again, it's still my question with the Picard tie-in, which I listened to the first one on audiobook. I'm listening to the Riker and Troy one kind of slowly because I'm not spending as much time in the car, but I should be listening to it. Is this canon material? Can I then say, well, this is actually what happened, or this is a take which is later going to be contradicted? You know what I mean? That's the one thing I really do like about Lucasfilm, is that they do tend to really be on top of, bam, here in 2012, this is a fresh slate. This is canon right now. Anything else we produce is going to be canon that interweaves itself into what's here, as opposed to Star Trek, where nothing that's not on screen is canon except maybe this stuff, and then there's some talk that some stuff in the post-Discovery era might wheedle its way in and something, but could be contradicted down the road. So canon is a double-edged sword. Todd and I have talked about this ad nauseum. It gives you a framework. You get to really wrap your hands around what's out there. But from a creative perspective, you could certainly see how it could pigeonhole writers saying, I'd really like to do this story, but this thing is in the way. So does that hinder? Does that drive the creative process? Does it turn it around? I don't know.
But on the same token, like you and I think we were talking about this off air. So Lucas is, since Disney acquired it, they are super world building,
right,
with all these different properties or all these different shows they're coming out with. And it's almost like Trek's following suit in this, because when you got Disco starting off was in the future, but they went even further in the future. And with that time, maybe that expands out that plane where writers can work. And if they are selective and pick out the creme de la creme of stories that they could turn into audiobooks, I could foresee it being canon and having a good shot at being canon.
Right. I agree. I agree, and I hope that that's the case too, because again, I would feel a whole hell of a lot less interest in something like this if it was just a Elseworlds tale, or a what if, so it'd be DC or Marvel, you know what I mean? So I would really like this to be legit. So we shall see, slated for release in May. I'll probably do the audiobook. You probably will too, because I know you and I tend to kind of lean in that direction just based on the upwardly mobile nature of where we're able to consume media being in the car. So that is it, my friend. That's the end of the program. So I'm going to kick it over to you.
So for more information about Starfleet International in Michigan and beyond, go on Facebook and search USS Grand Petoskey and or the USS Septarian. They're both our respective chapters of Starfleet International. We don't really talk about it a lot because this is more about the Trek shows, but I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun. Both ships are currently recruiting members. It's a $5 membership fee at sfi.org. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. The Code 47 podcast is a part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network and is produced by Todd Oxtra.
The one, the only, the legend in his own mind. So that's me. I jump on over. Friends, thanks for joining us. I want to tell you to hit us up on Twitter. We're making a little change on Twitter. We're folding all of our Secret Friends Unite podcast back into a single Twitter entity at Secret Friends U. So that's where you're going to find information shared and tweets based on not only this program, but our main show, which is Secret Friends Unite, which is kind of your general study in pop culture. Co-op mode is about video games, and then the Holocron Chronicles is all about Star Wars. So hit us up on Twitter. We're hoping to build a little bit of a following so that we can have a little bit more fun with that. So that's change number one. Change number two, we have revamped our store over on TeePublic. We kind of pulled the Secret Friends Unite designs out of the existing store, which was kind of a hodgepodge and different stuff. Now we have a store that just features our 4 designs, and hopefully we'll grow that as time goes by as well. But search us at Secret Friends Unite, and you will find us. You can also discover that link on the webpage. But all purchases from that store do actually benefit a charity that I belong to here in Michigan called the League of Enchantment, which does outreach work for kids nationwide. So leave us a 5-star review over on the podcast hosting service of your choice, and get a prize from our fantastic digital prize closet. That's anything from video games to single issues of comics to a few movies, TV episodes, fun stuff. But jump on, if it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, whatever it is, leave us a review, drop us a line, just to make doubly sure, and let us know how we can get that to you. So once again, thanks for joining us. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Be good to one another and live long and prosper.